Hey everybody, welcome to Backlight Technology Group's webinar. Today we're going to be going over utilizing camera image controls. My name is George Rangel, and here beside me is
My name is Mike. Welcome, everybody.
so let's get started. We're a Backlight Technology Group. We've been around for 30 years. We're in the surveillance security space, and we have locations here in the United States, Latin America, El Salvador, and Dubai and Barcelona. So we're going to be utilizing camera image controls, and we're going to go over fine-tuning your cameras over image control, basic terms, how to focus and zooming on your cameras, and activating deterrent settings and scheduling.
So first of all, we're just going to go over some terms. Here in tech support, we get a lot of calls referring to some of these terms and what do they mean? How do we use them? So before we even get started, we're going to go over some terms, what they mean, and how they can help you utilizing these functions.
So we're going to go over the wide dynamic range, which is WDR. The image produced by WDR sensors can have proper exposure on both the darker and lighter parts of the image, giving more detail across the wider range, dynamic range between the shadows and highlights.
So what does that mean? Usually, when we have uses in highlight conditions, a lot of banks use this function. When you come up to a teller and you're at the teller, or I'm sorry, at the ATM, and the background is a bunch of light. You can see in the picture here. It's very dark. You can't see the image presented to you in front of you. Turning WDR on will allow you to see that image a lot clearer.
Highlight compensation, HLC. The camera will take the bright spotlight areas into consideration and adjust the exposure accordingly.
So this is very good. We have license plate cameras. You can see here in this image, you have sometimes with the IRs on, you'll get that bounce back, especially off the license plate. In this picture, you can see you can't see anything. You're getting some whiteout from that. Turning this function on will allow you to lower the sensitivity of the IRs, or actually the image, and bring that clear picture through. So that's the HLC.
The other one would be backlight compensation, BLC. It's a setting that allows you to choose which areas of your scene should be properly exposed instead of letting the camera choose for you.
So this is very similar to WDR. The difference is that you can control what areas you want to set this setting on. So for instance, let's say in the picture here, you can see that it's very dark on top, light on the bottom. You actually choose how you want the camera to produce the image, rather than WDR lets the camera decide. Backlight compensation lets you decide. That's the difference between the two. And finally,
we have Smart IR, eliminates overexposure problems by dynamically adjusting the intensity of infrared light emitted by the camera's LED source as an object of interest moves closer or farther away in the field of view.
And so this is a new function that we have on our cameras. We used to have them, we went away from them, now we're back with them. So you can see in the image here, what this does is basically allow the IRs to adjust according to the image in front of it. So, we have a lot of situations where the IRs will come and give you a whiteout like the image. You can't see the person in front of you because the IRs are just too intense. What the smart IR does is allow the camera and the IR to adjust when something's in front of it. It'll lower that beam, not as bright, and allow you to see the image. So we went into these couple of these terms. Let's jump right into it. Give me a second. Let me transfer over to my live screen. I'm actually going to make this large. Okay. So if you can see my image here, what we're looking at is two cameras. You can see one of them I have out of focus, one of them's in focus. The first thing I'm going to show. So if you joined us last month, you've seen that we went over some of the things in the initial setup, how to plug your cameras in, what happens once you plug them in. So what happens after that? Now it's the next step 2 in the install. Now I'm going to go over here to my camera that I set out of focus on purpose. So we get a lot of calls. I installed these cameras. I got Vari-focal cameras, and they look crappy. As you can see in this image, very out of focus. What we're going to do is show you how to focus, autofocus, and zoom on these images. So if you make the camera large, left click, you'll see that at the bottom here, I have a small toolbar that comes up. And we have some icons here. The first one is for manual record, capture, instant playback. What we're going to focus on today is the PTZ control. I'm going to open that up. You can see here that it brings up on the left my PTZ controls. I have a zoom and a focus. Good thing about our cameras is they have an autofocus. So if you install the camera and you see this image and you want to focus it, what you can do is just tap on here on this focus plus. And I'm gonna let it zoom a little bit, and I'm gonna let it bounce back, and you can see that it auto focuses. Now, if I want to zoom back, I can do the same. I'm gonna zoom back out, back to my original image, and autofocus, right? And you can see right above here, there's a step. What does that mean? So step means you go 1, 5, and 20, meaning how fast the camera is going to zoom and zoom in and zoom out. Now, let's say you're zoomed all the way. Sometimes you get in the image, maybe some water spots or something in the foreground of the image, and it causes it to focus on that. So you can always, of course, do your focus here and not let the camera autofocus. You want to adjust that manually, you're able to do that as well. But the camera is very good at doing the autofocus, so you shouldn't have to worry about that too much. Okay, so we're done focusing. We got our cameras adjusted. We got it zoomed to where we want it. What next? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on some image controls. So, of course, bottom left, go to our setup menu, and in the first settings here is image control. You can see my two cameras here. The first one is a day-night camera, and the second one is my regular camera. I'm going to come in here into setup, and we're going to see some controls here on the left again. I'm going to go through each and every one of these. First one we have here is, of course, the channel you're working with. Right under that is the image setting. So this is for day-night. So this camera actually has a full color mode. So if I wanted to turn those IRs off, not have them on, and just have the camera work off of the color image, I'm able to do that. Or I can go into day-night mode, right? And that's going to allow the IRs to turn on at night. Or, and this is controlled by the camera, you know, receiving light or not. And down here, the last one is schedule. So I can also, let's just say there's some lights out there that cause the camera not to go into night mode. You can set a schedule to it. And I can go open my schedule here. Here's a 24-hour timeline. And I can just set, you know, what I want. On the bottom indicates what I'm doing. So if I want to do, you know, day-night mode, I leave that black. If I want full color mode, I can highlight that blue, right? And just put that back to where it was. I can save that, and I can control what times I want this function to appear. So let me get out of there. So what if I'm not using the schedule though? So I'm using day-night mode, and we'll see that there's some other options. The next below that is the IR cut mode. So this is how the camera is going to turn into day-night. So again, I can have it day all the time. I can have it night all the time. Or I can let the image determine, meaning if it's too dark, it's going to turn on night mode. If there's a lot of light, it's going to stay in day mode. And of course, again, schedule. I can set that schedule as well. Same area. So let me come back here, and we'll go back to my image. By default, we let the image control it. We let the image say, hey, I want to have this night mode on, night mode off. You know, by default, that's how it is. And then sensitivity. What's the sensitivity in that? You know, maybe there's a little bit of light, but not enough. I want it to be a little more sensitive. I can set that to 0, and vice versa. If there's too much light and I want to intensify that, I can do that as well. Below that, you see that we have IR LED mode, right? So there's a couple modes here. We talked about the Smart IR feature. So turning on Smart IR lets the camera and the IRs determine how we want the intensity of the IRs to be displayed. But let's say that I'm not happy with that Smart IR and I want to do it myself. So I can go to manual, and I can actually control the beam on the IRs, how intense I want it, or how I want to lower that. And I can just lower this. So this is good for license plate recognition. Again, we have the Smart IR feature that will allow you to have the camera to do it. But if not, you know, there's always different situations. So you can adjust that manually as well. Below that, we have lens flip. So if I hit this lens flip here, right, you can see it flip my lens. So this is good for, you know, you go install the camera and you realize maybe it's upside down, or you need to flip the angle on it, right? You can do that digitally. You don't have to go back up there and actually move the camera physically. That's good. We have this function on our cameras. We have a lot of situations. Maybe it's on the lift. You don't want to go back up there and you need to flip it. You're able to do that from this GUI here, right? And also, we can also do the angles, which is very similar to the lens flip, right? You can do 180 degrees, or I can turn that back to 0. Next, we have exposure compensation. These are the terms that we went over. WDR would be the first one, right? So highlight conditions, you can actually see the image change as I turn this on, right? You can see it went through, and I can control the intensity on this setting here by just moving this back and forth, right? And so next I'm going to go, the next one we're going to do is highlight conditions. I'm going to turn this on. You can see there's not too much highlight, but the image got dark, right? And it's adjusting, it's trying to find the right view. So if I had highlight conditions here, you can see that made the image a lot darker, causing the light in the background to be a lot darker as well. So remember that when you change these settings, you're also changing them day and night. There's no schedule for these settings for the
you just can't place it in setting, you have to adjust it.
Yeah, so we use this a lot for license plate recognition. We do recommend when you do that, you have two cameras, one's to detect license plates, one's to detect the image. You can see the image is very dark, but at night, if you're trying to catch license plates, this is going to be perfect. It's going to catch all your license plates. You don't have to worry about anything.
Sweet.
And you can also adjust the intensity on that as well. Backlight compensation. So like I said, very similar to WDR, but like I said, you could control how you want that light to come through, right? So I can do it from the top. I want it to adjust to the top of the light. I want everything to look as it is on the top of my image, to the left of my image, to the right of my image, down below, or the center of the image, And you can see the image is pretty straightforward here. We're not going to have much to change. So we can just, WDR would be a safer option in this situation. Turn that back on, you'll see that the picture does come a lot lighter, a lot clearer as it comes through. Okay, so next 3D noise reduction. So this is fuzz in the picture. You can always, these next settings you want to leave on auto. You really don't have to mess with these, but you can. The options there if you need it. You can see that I turn this on, and it's gonna make the picture a little more blurry if there's a lot of fuzz in the picture, or it's gonna make it a lot more clear if there's not a lot of fuzz. But again, you don't want to touch these too much. You don't have to. You want to leave that auto. If there's an auto setting on the camera, I recommend you use it. The cameras are very good at that, auto detecting. Same thing with white balance. If I change this to manual, you can see that I can adjust the colors in it, right? So I can make, for whatever reason, I can adjust these colors here. You don't really want to mess with that. You can see it really messes with the image, but it's there if you need to adjust some balances in it. Auto is perfect way to go. That's a nice crisp image with that auto. And again, this last one is shutter control. Leave it on auto. But if not, you want to change manual. This controls how much light is coming into the camera. Again, this is good for license plate recognition, or again, you have some highlight conditions. This is good for exposure, how much light's coming in. I can set this here, and you can see it's going to totally bring that color down.
So similar to a camera, right?
Very similar to a camera. Digital camera that you might use at home, very similar to it. But you can use auto. It's much better.
Nice.
So again, this is a color camera, full color at night camera that I'm using to adjust this. Get this out of here. The second camera I'm going to go through, you can see these are a little different. This is one of our Vari-focal cameras. It has a couple different settings. This one does not have the full color at night option. Right, if I come down here, this one has color mode, but not full color at night. Black and white, and again, scheduling, same as the other one. Mostly the same. You can just see, so maybe you go into the camera and say, hey, Mike, I don't see that full color at night mode. It's because it's a different camera. So not all cameras have the same settings. But I just wanted to show that really quick before we move on. Again, if you guys ever have any questions, feel free to ask them at any time.
Yeah, we have a question right here.
Sure.
Mike, why are this person's asking why their IRs are not turning on at night?
It's a very good question, and we get a lot of those questions. We get a lot of calls saying, my IRs ain't working at night. That's a good question. Let me come back in here again. It's going to be one of two things. Either we have this stuck on day mode, right? Actually, let me come into this one here. We have this stuck on day mode, so it's not, IRs are not going to come on. Or a lot of times when you're using a dome camera, and you adjust the dome inside, the IR is being blocked. So the camera thinks it's either daytime or nighttime. It's not getting enough. You want to make sure that the IR is able to see light or not see light. So a lot of times that's the situation that happens. Okay, so moving on. So after we set up our image controls, we have that set up. Our image looks good. Now we want to use some of the functions like a deterrence camera. So we get a deterrence camera. We want to turn on the active deterrent. We want to turn on the lights. We want to make sure all that stuff is going to happen in motion, or we're able to use these other functions after we adjust our cameras. So we're going to go over here to our alarm section. So under alarm, you'll see there is a deterrence button here, right? And my channel 1, which is the active deterrent camera, there's 2 ways to do it. I can set it up on this here. I can turn my light on and off. I can set the schedule to it and the duration. And actually, if you scroll to the right, this is another, we can also set the warning light, right? But I also want to go in and set it up through here. I can set the duration. I can enable it. Enable, disable my lights. If I enable it, so I want it to be on the color image, right? So for instance, we have a red and blue light that turns on. We want to make sure that that light doesn't just happen at night. It also happens in the day when there's motion. It's an active deterrent camera. We want to deter anybody coming into a situation. So you can turn that on here as a warning light, right? Or a strobe light. A couple other options that we have, and also how long you want it to have it on. Also sirens, right? The camera might come with a siren, able to turn that on as well. Turn this on here. I can schedule it, right? And how I want it to happen. Do I want it motion? Do I want it to be when it sees people or vehicles, pedestrians, line crossing, stationary object, cross counting, or rare sound? I can have the siren turn on under any of these situations and set up the same. Here's a timeline, 24 hours. I'm just going to come here. I can highlight this whole thing. So right now it's set for motion. I'm going to save that. It's set.
Hey Mike, for the sound, is it one sound only, or can you customize it?
So are we talking sound? Siren from the camera is just going to be one siren, right?
Siren, okay.
So that's siren from the camera. We also have cameras that have audio, and we have other options that we can have different sounds, recordings coming from it. We have a voice prompt option, right? And I don't think we've talked about this in the past, but we can actually upload a file. So of course we have the siren, regular police sounding siren, right? But we can also do a voice prompt, right? And I can do, I can set a file up here. I want to do a local conversation. I want to name it, let's just name it 1 for now. And then I can type in here what I want it to say, like,
get off my lawn.
Yeah, get off my lawn. Oops. Type here, get off my lawn. And what this is going to do is actually the recorder will give a verbal audible out of the camera saying, hey, get off my lawn. I'll play it back, but you guys can't hear it because of how I have this set up. But again, you can also loop that over and over and over. It's another cool function that we have. All cameras have this. If they have a speaker or a option to add a speaker to it, you can do it.
Cool.
So back here, back to my deterrence section. Okay, so we set up our deterrence. Again, I can do it from here. I can set up my light, or I can go into the setup here. If you don't have an active deterrent camera, you can see that I'm not allowed to do these options because my second camera is not an active deterrent camera. Okay, so we set that up.
Mike, I actually got another question for you.
Sure.
This one came up, I just missed it. Chad Texington from Springfield wants to know, why is my camera not autofocusing?
Awesome question. Awesome question. So let me just, before we move on, let's go through that really quick. Let me come back here. So again, I mentioned earlier that, open this up here.
PTZ, right?
PTZ function. Again, the camera's not autofocusing. It could be one of 2 things, right? Either you're not holding this button down long enough. If I tap it really quick, sometimes it won't go into the autofocus. So you want to hold it down for a significant amount of time, maybe 2-3 seconds, not just 1 second. The second reason why it's not autofocusing is because there's something on the screen. Maybe not on the screen, on the camera's lens. Maybe some water drops, maybe some dirt. And what's happening is the camera's focusing on that, whatever's on that screen. So it'll cause it to not autofocus. So you just go clean the screen really quick. If that doesn't work, try rebooting the camera. Sometimes it just gets stuck. Those three things, and you shouldn't have any issues after that.
Perfect. Another question from Christina Phalange. She wants to know, can I turn off my IRs off at night?
Yes, that is a good question. Yes, you can. Let me go back into that. I went over it, but let's go over it one more time just because we had the question. Go back into setup. And remember, under image control is going to control all your images. Image, so in here, and she said, why are they not coming on at night, right? Yeah. So one of two things. Maybe I have a full color at night camera, and it's going to cause it. Of course, there's no IRs on a full color at night camera. So that could be one. The second one is going to be, let me go back to my other camera. Here's my second camera. I have it in color mode. That'll cause it also not to come in. Yep.
So you got to self-adjust it.
You got to so not always, but if it's not coming on, part of the troubleshooting process, we want to check these things. Gotcha. Could be one of those things, could be small, something overlooked. Maybe a setting got clicked, you didn't realize it, but those are usually the reasons why IRs are not coming on at night.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm also going to go over, we did have a request for some audio. I just want to touch on this really quick. Turning on audio inside the camera. So you set your cameras up, your picture looks good, but you have some active deterrent cameras and they have built-in mics. You want to turn on that audio. So under Encode, this is going to control all of our resolution, frames per second, and audio settings, right? So if I come over here, I'm under record, Encode, and then I see my streams here. And you want to make sure that you have it on all streams. Of course, mainstream is your record stream. You want to make sure that most importantly is on. So it's just a simple click of audio, apply that. Now my audio is on mainstream, right? So set that fixed. Also, very important, substream. If you want to have it on substream, this is going to be if you're using it on your phone, if you're using it on your computer, or you're just viewing the multi-screen picture, you want to have substream on. That's going to enable you to see it live and hear it live. This is not the record stream. This is, again, the substream. And then last, all the way to the right, if you look over here, there's an audio button, and this allows you to control volume. So, all the way up to 9. You can lower that if it's too loud. Usually we don't have that too much, right? Yeah. We always want it louder, but you can always control that here if need be.
All right, Mike, I got another question for you from Chandler Welling. He's asking, why am I seeing camera whiteout at night?
Oh, very, very good question.
What does that mean?
So I'm going to come back over here. Let's address that. So camera whiteout means a couple of things, right? I'm going to come back into image control. So now, actually, let's come to this one. Now, we'll Smart IR. You can hear my volume coming through. Give me 1 second. Because I turn that on, you can actually hear that coming through. Let me turn that back off. We don't have any problems with that. Again, Encode, I'm going to turn these off so I don't hear no feedback. Okay. Back to my channel. So whiteout could be a couple things. Now with Smart IRs, we don't have to worry about that. The Smart IR function will allow us to the camera to adjust for that, right? But let's say not. Again, we have these beams down here we can control. Let me put this back in day-night mode. Right. So I let the image control. I want to put it on. So intensity, right? So you're getting whiteout. It could be this beam here. We can lower this beam. That will cause the camera to not have as much strong light coming through, right? Or Smart IR again, it'll adjust us for it. So Smart IR will cause the camera to not have so much whiteout. A lot of times there's pictures, something in the picture causing the image to white out. So for instance, there's something too close to the camera's IR, you're gonna get that bounce back. If I go back here to give me a second, let me show you what that would look like again. So you see, again, there's that whiteout. You can see the face in the image. With the Smart IR, it gets rid of that. So very good function that we have added back to our cameras. It should eliminate a lot of that whiteout that we get.
Perfect.
So let me come back to my live screen here. And one more thing I want to show you before we go. Let me come back here to my thing here. And that is if I want to do some of these settings from the live image. So I'm going to come back to my deterrence camera again, left click, and you see some of these options here at the bottom. One of them is the light. I'll turn that on. You can see the light is on. I used it's coming out the window I have right here. So you can see the lights turn on. That's the regular light on the deterrence camera. I can turn that on, turn that off. That's directly from the live screen. The next one's going to be the siren. You might hear this go off. Turn that on, right? And I could also adjust the volume on it. Did that get really low? Did that get really loud? Turn that on. And last is our red and blue deterrents. You see that going off at the bottom of the screen. So that's how you turn those things on manually. If you need to do that, you need to do some tests on them to make sure they're working. After you set your camera up, this is probably the last thing you want to do. You set your audio up. You want to make sure that all these deterrent functions are working.
Awesome.
That's how you do that. Pretty much that's it. I hope I answered all these questions. We get a lot of calls for a lot of these things. Have any other questions you might have?
No, that's it. That's everyone's questions that I see. Thanks, Mike.
So again, this is going to be on YouTube for your guys's
Viewing pleasure.
viewing pleasure.
And if you guys wanted more information, you can, or tech support, you can contact Mike Lugo or me, George Ranger, in sales at george@bolatico.com or Mike at mikelugo@bolatico.com. Like Mike said, we'll be uploading this webinar on YouTube shortly. And for more information, you can visit our website at www.bolatico.com. You can also download our latest catalog for 2023.
Yep. And remember, if you guys ever need training, for whatever reason, your customers need it, you can always give us a call. We can set that up for you or your customers or your team. We're here for you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We'll see you in our next webinar. Thank you, George, for joining us and hosting this.
No problem.
Everybody have a good day. Hope you guys the rest of the week. Happy Thanksgiving.
Merry Christmas.
See you guys soon. Thank
Later.
you.